we're not dealing with the climate change in the way he is. I think he's properly calling our attention to it. We're not dealing with healthcare. We're not dealing with and we're fundamentally not dealing with the underlying question of education and K-12 education, the quality of education. And instead, we're obsessed with places like Baghdad, with people we never heard of 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 months ago. We never heard of most of them. And our president, you know, I think he's for the best of intentions, with the best of intentions, trying out hard as he can. But I must tell you that it's an unusual sight to see the president of the United States acting like the mayor of Baghdad. And, you know, while at the same time, we face competition that's rising in Asia and China and India, and unless we pay attention, unless we get our education fixed, and we make it so more people are graduating from high school, ready for college, and then are ready for the 21st century jobs, China and India are going to come sweeping past us in your lifetimes. I was out at Intel not long ago with Andy Grove, who was the one who co-founded that company. Wonderful man. Intel makes a microprocessor for chips. It's a very creative, very, very successful company. And now Andy Grove tends to be he's been paranoid. He wrote a book about his days as CEO called Only the Paranoid Survive. And that's sort of the view he has on life. But he told me, he said, look, and he teaches at Stanford. He's retired. And they've been doing some calculations in this graduate class at Stanford, and they figured out unless we address the underlying issues that face us as a country in terms of education and all these other questions that we now face, unless we become more competitive than we now are, unless we sort of bring the trend lines back up instead of going down, that the standard of living for the average American family, by the time your kids are growing up, will decline by 40% from what it is today. The average standard of living will be 40% lower than it is today in America because of the competitive threat. Now that may be alarmist. It's a way outside the mainstream calculation. But let's say he's only half right. A 20% drop in American living standards, given the inequalities that we face, will bring enormous social disruption and tension and chaos. So it is something we need to pay attention to. And we can't wait for you all to wait for 20 years for you all to grow up. We need you to start leading now as you come out of college, as you come out of graduate school, to get out in the arena and help to bring change in the country. And can people do that? Well, I talked to a group earlier today. Yes, you can do that when you're young. You're on this campus this very evening as a young woman named Wendy Cobb. Wendy Cobb in 1989 was sitting exactly where you're sitting today. She was a senior in college. She conceived of something in her senior paper called Teach for America. And then she went out the next year and started going out and raising money for it. And look where it is today. You know, places like a lot of the schools in the Northeast right now, and this is spreading across the country, 10% of the graduating class, 10% of the graduating seniors are trying to sign up to Teach for America, to go out and teach in the toughest public schools in the country. They're going into the Bronx, they're going into Harlem, they're going into Detroit, they're going into a lot of tough places. She's on this campus tonight recruiting for Teach for America. And that's a good thing. Be knocked down.
I'm willing to be knocked down. An inside job, look it up, all of you. So is 9/11.
Sir, if we can very respectfully ask him to either sit down quietly, or if you allow and respect everybody else, sir, so that the rest of the people here can hear. We'll go on. Okay, let's go. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can we proceed?
Yes.
I must tell you that this can be a very complex subject about becoming a leader, but it also can be reduced to some very simple realities and some simple truths. And I'm going to take the very simple route tonight because I think it's important we sort of talk and be sort of straight about some fundamentals and get the blocking and tackling done. You all can do the more sophisticated work on your own as you go forward. But I want to tell you a little bit about what I learned. It is a privilege for any American citizen to work in the White House. For me, I've had the chance now to work there 4 times, so I'm hugely privileged in my life. You may think I started with Grover Cleveland, but actually it was a little later than that. But I had the chance to work directly with 4 of our last 6 presidents, and I worked indirectly with the remainder, and I did not know Lyndon Johnson. I'm sorry I didn't, because he was a fascinating case. And I can only recommend you go read Doris Kearns Goodwin, or go read Robert Caro, or some of these other folks. But start with Doris Kearns Goodwin, because it's a shorter, easier book, and it gives you, well, it's a very accessible book. Robert Caro goes on like this, and it's a much more in-depth. But Doris captured the essence of Lyndon Johnson, and there are other books, obviously, that are very good too. But I've known every president since Lyndon Johnson. And I will tell you that there are 3 elements that I found, 3 main pillars of leadership that sort of became obvious to me over time watching them. And you need all 3 in balance and proportion. And let me just tell you what I thought they were. First and foremost, this is something that folks don't like to talk about because they find it a little bit, it's a little impolite perhaps. It seems something, well, I'm not sure I really think that's a nice trait, but I want to tell you something. Every person I've ever seen who's been a good leader has been ambitious. They've been ambitious. They want to make a difference. They want to make a mark. Now, you may think that's an undesirable trait. Well, remember this. Abraham Lincoln, whom we all think of as a humble figure, he had a flame inside him that was intense. Billy Herndon, who was his law partner, said after his death, said of Lincoln's ambition, it was a little engine that knew no rest. A little engine that knew no rest. Gandhi fought most of his life against British colonialism. He fought both in South Africa and he fought in India. And yet Gandhi went to study in the very country that he hated. He went to study in Britain. Someone asked him, why would you go study law in Britain? He gave a one-word response: ambition. Ambition. I'm telling you, you need that flame. You need a sense of inner drive. The issue is not whether you're ambitious. The question is, ambitious for what? Most people start life out as one ambitious ones being ambitious for self. They're ambitious to make themselves glorious, famous, successful, rich. The real leaders are ones who take that ambition for self and channel it and gradually become ambitious for others. It's the question, if you are ambitious for the group, for the team, for the society, for the corporation, for the congregation, whatever it may be, if you're ambitious for others and you want to sort of realize success through others, that's how you exercise leadership. Because leadership is about, after all, in its fundamentals, leadership is about motivating other people in the pursuit of shared goals. That's what, by definition, leadership is about. Motivating other people to pursue shared goals. And if you're for the group, they're going to go with you. But if you're for yourself, they're going to turn away. George Washington started out being hugely ambitious for himself. He was very aggressive and trying to accumulate land and trying to move up in the British Army, trying to make a name for himself because he didn't come from a titled plantation family in Virginia. And he spent a lot of time looking after George Washington. But when he went with the troops into the woods in the French and Indian War, and then when he started working with the troops and the American Revolution, he became ambitious for the group and to succeed with his troops. And they loved him for it. And that's the reason he not only became their commander-in-chief, but that's the reason they made him president. And the Constitution was written very much with Washington in mind. Washington was one of the ones who made that transition from ambition for self to ambition for others. Franklin Roosevelt was much the same. Franklin Roosevelt had to go through his polio.